Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Organizational Change Tools Every Project Professional Needs to Know, presented by the Director of Business Solutions at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so very much, Mariela. Well, welcome. Happy Thursday. We are going to talk about org change in general and org change tools and all kinds of fun stuff. So the key things that we're going to cover is not only the tools you can use, but actually becoming a change agent. We all need to become a change agents. And what do I mean by that? I will tell you in just a few minutes. But you will also learn some tools that you can easily use. These are simple tools. They're not convoluted or crazy. Things that you can use when you go back to your desk. We're also going to talk about, which is really huge, is why do people resist change? And how do we help them adopt new behaviors? And then how do we sustain that change? And so I'm going to really be able to want to set it up so that we talk about what is org change in the first place. But before we do that, how did we get here? Why are we even talking about change? Why is it so crucial? And you think about even in today's crazy climate, really, organizations is a constant state of change. So this is where we're going to do a little participation here. I want to know what's changing in your organization, because it doesn't matter what organization I talk to, what students I have in class, or my consulting clients, there's always change going on, whether it's process or technology or, change in methodologies, or now AI is coming. So what is changing in your world? I'm very curious. So put it in the chat, please. And Donald, yes. To answer your question, you will get a copy of today's webinar. Yeah, restructured the leadership team as we've grown headcount. Yeah, and that's a huge change, right? That's really, kind of shocking to the system. New software implementation, Connie, absolutely. What are some others people are going through? Even here at Educate 360, we're merging, we're buying new organizations, then we're merging cultures, we're merging software and processes. I mean, it gets a little crazy. One day you have one process, one day you have another process. It's like, oh, yay, I get to learn something new. Which luckily I like learning something new, but it does keep you on your toes. Copilot, AI Copilot available. Yep, that's a change. Formalizing and developing processes, AI, huge. Yep, we're incorporating AI into the stuff and kind of figuring out where does that fit. Formalizing or developing processes. Yep, closing down one of the plants. Ooh, that's really hard too. And then you have to, bring everything in, make sure it's covered. Streamlining processes. Everything changing in our firm. Yeah, that shifting sand thing. Adding new projects, directed to reduce staff, to increase efficiencies. Yeah. There's just a lot. Reorgs, aligning common processes, Copilot. Wow. Regulatory. Okay, so that always comes. Yeah, so we're constantly in a state of change. And I think it gets more and more these days and faster. I feel like a little gerbil on the little wheel there. So the thing is, and why are we talking about this? Because every project team member should really have a role in being a change agent into organizational change management because it is so critical. Think about our projects. What do projects do? If we're work on projects, they bring change to the people of the organization. They they can bring change to the processes and the software. Those are kind of easier to manage, right? This is bringing change to people in the organization, and they're not so easy to change. You can't just say, suck it up, buttercup, and that's what we're going to do. You can, but the change is not going to go as easy. So when change comes to people, it brings that uncertainty. People get a little bit anxious, they get a little bit nervous, a little confused. Do I have a place? Do I not have a place? Where am I at now in the org structure? Maybe I don't understand why we're even doing this. And so we're looking at how to adopt and adapt to new processes, new technology, all those new changes, new org structures, right? Because if we don't get the people to adapt, the outcomes and the expected value, I'm going to tell you right now, will not happen. Will not happen. I've been a consultant for over 30 years, which dates me a little bit. A lot of times bringing in, working on projects and doing the change management piece. That is huge, because if you don't get people's buy-in, if you don't get them to change their behaviors on the change, it's not going to happen. I actually walked in one time and I was working with an organization and they said, you know what, you're the third consultant we have in there, which is true because the last two just kind of failed and the project didn't go anywhere. And, I dare you to make me change. So it's like, okay. I started laughing because I thought it was kind of funny. I said, accept your challenge. But I got their buy-in and we made it work. And so it's figuring out, how do we get people to change their behavior? How do we get their buy-in? And that's kind of what we're talking about, and some tools to help us do that. So what is organizational change management? It really is a structured approach to get people to more rapidly, more readily adapt to change, whether it's to processes or org structures or new software or, new technology in some fashion. And it's things that are changing. And now they go, you know what? It's not work as usual. Now I've got to change. But getting people on board, their buy-in, getting them ready for the change leads to a much smoother implementation. And you know what? You get the benefits. Because if everybody is going to dig in their heels, you're not going to get the benefits. Like that one company, true story, they tried twice before I came in and couldn't make it stick because the people didn't want it and they weren't being listened to. And so that, how much money did they spend on that? Yep. And yeah, someone said downside buy-in requires consensus. It does, but sometimes people just need to know what the change is. Sometimes people need to have people just listen to them. They might not all like the change. They might not all agree with the change. They might have different ways they would have done it. But if you listen to them and you get their buy-in and build that strong relationship, they can come along. They can come along. And there's going to be people who don't, and then you have to sometimes part ways on those. So it really is the people side of change. And so why are we even talking about, why is it important? Well, thinking about your project success, because we all work on projects, or at least I'm going to assume you do, is really dependent on the personal side of change. Here's some really fun stats. 47% of organizations that integrate change management are more likely to meet their objectives. The other 30% didn't, because they didn't incorporate it. And I've seen that. I've seen changes just be dropped, not fully implemented, spent a lot of time working on that. And because they didn't get the people on board, they didn't get their buy-in, it went nowhere. It really went nowhere. So 1 in 3 CEOs failed to achieve their desired outcomes because of it. 2/3 of the workers experience burnout, which is huge. Look at the change fatigue. Oh gosh, I'm just tired. Transformation of failure. And think about the stress we're putting on people. People need help. Like I said, it's not just, suck it up, buttercup. Too bad, too sad. If you want a job, you're going to do it. That doesn't help. As much as we just sometimes would like to say that, that does not help. That does not get their buy-in. And you know what? If we don't get their buy-in, and they might just say, okay, I'm just going to do what I want to do, or I'm just going to, we'll put it in and I'm going to do it my way anyway. So I don't know about you, but I've seen where processes have been improved, and a year later they are so convoluted, spaghetti mess, you can't even get through it. So people can sabotage, and sometimes they will. So here's really the personal transition process. I use this always in my consulting, especially because, as projects introduce change. So how do people go through this? Because we really don't think about that. Going through change is sometimes a journey. And it's a personal journey, and we all go through it differently. So if we look at productivity here, this is on the vertical axis, horizontal axis is time. And we have the current routine, the status quo, which doesn't last very long these days. But we get comfortable. It's like I know what to do. I know, I go to work and know my stuff. And all of a sudden a change hits. And we go, okay, we're going to implement this new system. Or maybe it's just, okay, we're going to give you heads up in 6 months, we're going to implement this new system or this new process, or we're going to reorg, or whatever it is. Have that change event. Then people are going to go to resistance. And I'm going to talk about resistance in more detail later. There's always resistance, always. Even if it's 5 minutes or 5 years, there's going to be resistance. Because sometimes it's like, well, what are we doing? Sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, I get it, and then you're fine. But everybody has resistance. And then there's a part of, letting go. And then there's a chaos going, okay, am I in the old state? I'm in the new state. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. What's my role? How do I fit in? And then eventually I get insight. And if I practice what I need, I get to that new status quo. And this can be used if, you're finding a new job, you're learning new technology, you're learning a new process. People go through this. And so, and you can notice the productivity here, right? When you're learning something, like a lot of times we'll put in new processes or new technology, this is going to streamline, this is going to make, save us time doing it, increasing our productivity so we can take time for our people to do other things. Guess what happens to productivity when you're first learning something? Does anybody know what happens to productivity when you learn anything new? Are you as fast at it? Yeah, David, it goes down. Yeah, Donald, Tuckman's very, very similar to Tuckman. It goes down. And I have had one of my colleagues actually just put in an ERP package. 9 months later, they were pulling it out because they didn't get the productivity they wanted. And that is, if they would have waited, they probably would have got that productivity, but they didn't get it right away. Nobody told them, or the CEO or the powers that be, you have to wait until people get comfortable and they can do it. Just like when they can do it in their sleep. Last year they could do it really fast. Well, how come productivity went down? Oh, because they have something new to learn. Now they got to think about it. They can't just do it by rote. And so this is huge when you're looking at value. Projects should create value. We probably all agree about that. And if you're looking for like productivity gains and things like that, you are not going to get the value you thought right away. It is going to be a little bit later down the road because we need to get used to it. We need to be able to learn how to do it. So the speed of change, if we're looking at this process, okay, everybody goes through the process and not at the same time. I often use this and I say, okay, with my team, and I go, okay, where is everybody around this change? And I do it confidentially, so they're not kind of cheating. Because what happens, people go, oh, we're all in the same place. We're all in insight and vision. Guess what? When I have them self-assess where they're at on the journey, they're not all in the same place. You know, some people might be in practice and insight and vision. Others are like, I'm just trying to find my footing, you know, and some might be still in resistance. I don't like this. This was not my decision. So how fast you go through that depends on, one, our personal capacity for change, experience with previous changes. Oh God, here we go again. Another change. They messed it up the last time. I'm not going to like it this time. I don't trust them anymore. Those are things I have heard over the years, and maybe you have too. Your personal acceptance of the change. Do you think this is, oh my gosh, it is about time. Oh God, this is going to be great. Or are you kidding me? Who in the heck? I always get that when I'm working with teams. I go, yeah, management has another stupid idea. You know, when you're talking to the you know, people who have to make the change. The quality of support. Do you get any support? Or are you just left to the wind? You know, your team's willingness to support, the timing of the change. Oh, this is the 10th change we've gotten last month. So it really depends on a lot of things that are going on in the organization. So that behooves us to be able to become change agents. Change agents are people who help people change their behaviors, because people have to change their behaviors, the ways of doing things. They have to change their mindsets. They have to change, you know, their thought processes. And they're, you know, so it's really helping. How can we help people adopt and adapt to the change? And that's what a change agent is that let's help those people that are in change. When I was first working on projects, well, many moons ago, I would get really excited about the project, going, oh yeah, this is great. Oh God, this technology is so cool. You're gonna love it, you know, and I would work with some of the end users, and they go, this sucks. I don't know how to do this. What am I supposed to do? And I'm going, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. You are going to love it. And I couldn't understand why people didn't love it as much as I did. Well, I had worked on it for, you know, 6 months, 9 months. And I knew it was coming. And you know, they didn't necessarily have training. Yeah, it can make people insecure for sure. They didn't like the idea. They liked the old ways because they were comfortable with it. You know, and so it's just like, you know, there's something here. I got to do something differently, because if people aren't going to use it as we envision it, and people are going to sabotage it, or they're going to go back to their old habits, which can certainly happen, we're not going to get the value. And that's what led me into being, you know what? Everybody has to be a change agent. Everybody on the team, not just those change managers. Because a lot of times we go, oh, you know, I'm a business analyst, I'm a developer. It's not my job, not my job. Somebody else can do that. The trouble is, it's all our jobs, because if our job is to get that project done, it won't get done unless we bring the stakeholders with us, the end users, anybody who's impacted by the change. And so, because we introduce change to people, and oftentimes we are, as project members, project professionals, are right at ground zero, right? And we see the people, we see the stakeholders, they're talking to us. And the other thing is there are not enough change managers. A lot of times, you know, or bigger organizations have org change managers, and they usually are on really large, you know, projects, you know, multi-million-dollar projects, which is wonderful. But how many projects do we have that there isn't anyone? Which means we have to do it. You know, because if we don't get the people to adopt, if we don't get the people to buy in, that project, even though it's on time, on budget, in scope, is going to be a failure. The project you may have done fine. The outcome you're not going to get, because unless you get people to come with you, they're not going to go anywhere. So how do we help others to adapt to the change? Because that's kind of our goal. It's, we may not go to school for org change management, but we still can do some simple things to help people adapt to the change. So if they adapt to the change, they change their behaviors, they change their mindsets, then we're going to be able to get the value from the change that we thought. So first of all, you can start by just assessing organizational readiness. Can the organization or department, a lot of times it's just a department, can they absorb the change? Can they, and then if they absorb it, can they sustain it and not go back to their old ways of thinking? Because that's really hard. If you can't sustain the change, all that effort that you just did is going to go away. The value is not going to be there if you can't sustain it. And people, we're creatures of habit, right? How many of you get a New Year's resolution? Anybody a New Year's resolution? You do your resolution, and it's like for the first 3-4 weeks, pretty good, right? And then what happens? Some years I do. And then what happens is we kind of fall off the bandwagon, so to speak, whether it was to exercise more or to do something healthier or whatever it was, and it doesn't have to even be New Year's. It can be any time of the year going, I really need to make a change. The doctor said I need to make a change. I need to do more of this. And we're pretty good for a while. And then what happens? We're creatures of habit. It's just like, oh, I really don't want to go out today. It's icky. It's raining outside. I don't want to go for a run. Or you know what? I used to do this in 2 minutes and now it's taken me 5. I wonder if I could just, tweak the process a little bit so I can do it in 2 minutes again. And things start weaving in there. So not only do we have to initially help people change their behaviors and mindsets, we have to make sure it's sustained and they don't slide into that slippery slope and go, oops. So if we want full value of the change of the solution, we have to do that. So one of my favorite tools, and I use this a lot, this is an old one. This comes back from the Kurt Lewin, the 50s, I think. But it works so, and it's so easy to use, but it gets people thinking. And so what the force field analysis is saying, okay, what are the driving forces that are going to push us towards the change? Because we do need that. Otherwise, those restraining forces are going to say, nope, not going there. So this is the thing about moving to work from home for 3 days a week, or you could do it. People are now having to come in for the whole week. You can kind of just make it whatever you have, and so you just brainstorm with a bunch of people. I usually do it in a group and say, okay, what are the driving forces to move back to work physically? Because we've gotten pretty good and technology's gotten really good. AKA what we're doing right now, to be able to communicate and collaborate and do all that stuff from virtually. We don't have to be there. So if we're going to make people come in, what does that look like? What are the driving forces that we get them excited to actually move into the office again? Well, we might want to concentrate on saying, there's going to be improved collaboration and teamwork. I know sometimes, you're at home and you get busy and, you're doing your thing, but man, we can, get back to collaborating and working as a team and seeing each other's eyes as we're in a meeting, Or enhanced learning and development. Maybe I'm just, I got a new job. I haven't even seen the people that I work with, and now I get to be in the office with them. And that'll be really cool because then I can learn, I can build up my skills in my profession. Maybe a stronger company culture. We're just not all widgets. We're just, we're a group of people that are coming to do something. Better work-life separation. So now it's like when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, I'm at home. And the twain hopefully never meet. Although we still have all kinds of communication tools to bug us during the evening too. But maybe there's an easier way to separate. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm not at work, I'm at home. Or reduced isolation. Gosh, it gets kind of lonely out here by yourself. So whatever it is, what you do is you take each instance and say, okay, is this a weak force or is this a very strong force? And then what we want to do is leverage those. So if I'm trying to market this idea, I'm trying to sell this idea, I'm trying to get people excited about coming back to work, I'm going to take all of these pieces and leverage that in my communication, in my actions, that when I work with the stakeholders. So, 5, gosh, collaboration, teamwork. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. Yep, that's definitely 5. A lot of 3s, enhanced learning, stronger company culture, better life separation. In that case, can we even enhance that? Can we figure out, kind of what's in it for them and what are they looking for? And then reduced isolation. Maybe that wasn't a big deal because we can all communicate anyway. So we got a total of 16. Restraining forces is saying, okay, we know there's some really good driving forces that to come back to work. Now, what are the things that are going, I'm not going to let you change, because these are the things that keep us also in those bad habits. So if we're trying to, say, gee, I'm going to exercise more, there's driving forces that'll get me healthier. I'll take less medication, I'll be stronger, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be happier because, if you move and you exercise, it enhances the endorphins and, all this other wonderful stuff. But then there's restraining forces like, oh gosh, now I got to spend the effort. So you got to figure out how to get over them, right? So restraining forces against moving to the office are the lack or loss of flexibility. I can't now I probably have office hours, and so I can't just start in my office at 9 o'clock because I want to throw a load of clothes in, or I have to take the kids to school, or whatever it is, right? So we have a loss of flexibility there. Increased costs, now I got to pay for gas. Maybe I have to pay for more car insurance because I'm driving a further distance from my house. Now I have to have decent clothes, so I can't, run around in my bunny slippers and jeans anymore. So, so anyway, it's, trying to figure out, oh gosh, now I gotta buy some new clothes. Or Chris, maybe that's a plus for some of you. Lifestyle, more time on the road. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm just spending 2 hours now, 1 hour going there and 1 hour coming back, or depending on where you live, sometimes a couple hours going, couple hours coming back. It's more time on the road, which means less time at work and less time with family. Reduced work-life balance, it's a little hard now. I gotta put the kids in daycare. A lot of times people are looking after their elderly parents or someone in their house that's maybe needs 24-hour support. Now they can't do that. Health concerns, more contagion because everybody comes to work and then they the kids go to school and then the germs start and then everybody passes around to everybody. So that's a 20. So what I'm going to do then is saying, okay, how do I propel the driving forces and how do I address those restraining forces? How do I, what can we do about those health concerns, which is real, what about trying to figure out work-life balance? You know, if somebody needs to be at home, can they be at home? You know, and just really trying to figure out if you're going to have people move to this new direction, you got to figure out how to, especially this is bigger. This is 20 is over 60, 16. So this means I really have to figure out how to minimize that. Otherwise, people are not going to change because it's a lot stronger than the driving forces. So that's just something, and you can do that with a couple people, you can do that with a team, and just say, okay, to me, this is kind of like risk, right? For those PMs is, you know, okay, what are the risks? What are the pitfalls? Okay, the pitfalls are those restraining forces. So how are we going to get over them? You know, so we can incorporate and get to the benefits that we expect. So this is just kind of a really nice tool. It's simple, it's conversational, certainly not scientific because it is subjective, but it helps you avoid the traps that could be there, and also helps you get buy-in. What do you think people are going to be excited about by coming back into the office? So I said we were going to talk about resistance, and we're going to talk about it now because resistance will prevent you from getting value from your projects unless people are on board. And so resistance by nature or by definition is refusal to accept or comply with something. You know, you're preventing action or the argument. And sometimes we don't appreciate how people feel about change because sometimes people feel like change is like jumping off a cliff with no net, no bungee strap, no parachute. It's just like, okay, here we go. So we have to appreciate, again, that everybody is somewhere on a different journey, and they may feel differently about change than we do. So why do people resist change? So I'm going to ask you once again to put in the chat, and you could use some of these. My big thing, I'll just raise my hand, is losing control. And even though most of my control is a figment of my imagination, I just like to think I'm in control. So what is how come you resist change, or how have you seen others resist change? Is it because of control? Is it because your workflow processes are changing? Is burnout, change fatigue, which I think I'm seeing a lot more of these days? Silver bullet, you know, if I could have $1 for every time I heard that, oh, this is the next silver bullet, here we go again, you know, and you can tell there's a resistance just even in saying that. Poor management of resistance, insufficient time, like we got to have it done in a week. It's hard to turn people around in a week. History of poor follow through. Oh, we'll just wait them out, just like my example. Yeah, fear of the unknown. Yeah, it's like I don't know what that is. Maybe I didn't sign up for that. Increased work for the same pay. I think, Cynthia, that's great. It's just like, oh, thank you, just more work. Everybody, you know, all the companies are getting lean. We're just trying to, you know, do more with less, right? And it's like, now I've got a bunch of other stuff on my desk. Yeah, prefer to stick to the old ways because I know it. I know what to expect. I know what my role is, you know. So yeah, Pat said too, yeah, a lot of us probably feel that way, right? Oh, more work, yay. Just what I signed up for. Lack of alignment. I mean, there's a lot of reasons people resist change. And so how do we help people, you know, because I said we got to help them adopt and adapt to the change, you know, from a mindset, from a behavioral standpoint. How do we do that? Because if we can get their buy-in and keep them moving, you know, we're going to be doing ourselves and the project and the organization certainly adding value. So the myth of change, and I've seen this a lot, and you probably have too. So the myth of change is saying, you know what, if we tell you what the change is about, and we tell you why we can't stay here, and we tell you about that great future, people will just come. They'll just come because we have such a compelling statement. It's like, well, this just makes sense from an organizational point of view. What's wrong with you? I mean, don't you want to go to that future state? You don't want to stay here, do you? It's not going to be good for the organization. That is the myth of change. If we just tell people, they will come. Well, we have to do a little bit more than that, because I'm going to tell you that usually doesn't work. They do need to know and understand the why of the change, and we'll talk about that. But just thinking about, if I communicate it once and the message is out there, everybody's just going to be fine. And that doesn't work. So here's the formula of change. And I really like this. And not that because it's a mathematical formula, because it's not really. But it allows me to think about, okay, there's 3 elements here. There's dissatisfaction. The D is for dissatisfaction. So what's wrong with the current state? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm just fine here. You all can change. I'm sitting here. So what's wrong with it? Why do we have to move? So we have to let them know, what is that burning platform? That's the push. Okay. That, oh, we can't stay here. My feet are getting a little hot. I guess I see a reason to move. Vision is how the future state's addressed, that compelling vision. You remember I said, okay, what's over there? Over there. And then there's a whole like edge and cliff right there. And so how do I get over there? What's over there? Do I want to go to that next hill? And so we have to let them know what that vision is. And then it's not only enough to have that, but we have to figure out, okay, people, you understand that I don't have a parachute or a bungee cord or a net. How am I going to get over from current state to future state? That's where we have the plan. How are you going to help people start moving so they can walk back up the cliff? So some people, and we want messages of both. Because for me, you give me a really compelling vision. It's like, hey, cool, I like that. But that's what my motivation is. Other people's motivation might be when they feel the heat. It's like, ooh, yeah, this is kind of uncomfortable. I think I need to maybe move somewhere else where my feet aren't on the hot coals. So some people change when they see the light, some people when they feel the heat. And so we need messages of both to go forward. So creating that burning platform, the sense of urgency. Why can't we just stay here? It worked before, and so what we need to do is create a sense of urgency. It's like, you know what? We need to move here. And this is or we need to move off of where we're at. This is why, what are the drivers? Oh, our customers are going to go somewhere else. If our customers go somewhere else, our company's not going to do it so well. We're going to be out of a job. Kind of figuring out, what do they care about? Oh, we need to move here because do you know it takes you 25 minutes to do this report? New system can do it in 2. Oh, I kind of like that idea. So it's really, excuse me, about communicating what's in it for me. So the interesting thing is we need to communicate really on 2 levels. One, why do we need to do this as an organization? They need to know that too. But at the end of the time, they really want to know, okay, why do I have to? I get all you guys have to change. My thing is, why do I have to change? So it's communicating that with them. What's in it for me? You may all have to. What do I get if I change? Then you still have to do that compelling vision. Here's where the organization is going to be. This is how we're going to grow. We do this a lot at Educate 360, Who are we? And, we can't stay here if we want to grow. We got to move forward. So they give us a new vision. And then it's another with them. I need to see myself in the future state. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, is my role changing? What I'm doing going to change? Do I work with different people now? Who do I report to? I've been here for 5 years. I think it's 5 years. I don't know, time goes fast. With Educate 360, I have had 4 bosses in those 5 years. It's like I wake up going, who's going to be my boss today? All of them are different. And I've been blessed because they've all been great, which is, you can't usually say that because sometimes you have a really good boss and then you have a crappy one going. And I've had some really great ones and I've had some really bad ones, which I've had to move on because they're just like, ugh. But visualizing, how am I going to relate to my new boss, or how am I going to relate to my teammates, or what is my role in that future state? Am I going to have a role in that future state? People want to know, how am I going to fit in? How am I going to fit in with this team? And that's where you're going to create that compelling vision. And another tool, which is really helpful, is understanding the impact, the personal impact. Like I said, people, at the end of the day, they go, okay, I get the change. I get why the organization is changing. What does that mean to me? Because again, it gets on that personal level. Exactly how is my job going to be different? Who do I report to? How is it going to affect me? And so one of the things we can do is a really clear impact analysis. And it's like, okay, remember in the current state, use the material determination to give low stock to a customer. The customer would call in, they want to know about the stock. Now we're going to use product allocation to allocate. Oh, I can still do that. That's cool. I can still give low stock to numbers to the customer. Okay, so that's good. So then I can feel like, I can still do my job. The manual process and significant communication among customer service, sales, to ensure sufficient qualities of the correct product goes to the customer. Okay, so now what does that look like? Standard available to promise, ATP, check carried out at order entry. ATP check is done by delivery creation time and substitutions applied as needed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's makes people more comfortable, because if you're feeling like you're losing control, you don't know what's expected of you, you don't know what you're going to do, having something, and it doesn't have to be, as for some people might have to be really detailed, for others maybe not, but it's like, okay, here's what you used to do, here's what you're going to do now, here's what you used to do, here's who you report to, here's who you're going to report to now. This is the process, the old process, this is the new process, and these are some of the things that you're going to do. Maybe your performance evaluation is going to change. Here are the things, your goals for last year, here are your goals for next year. I mean, so what's expected. You may not know every single thing, but at least you're on solid ground and you can go, okay, I get it. So if we can do an impact analysis saying, okay, here's what you used to do and here's what you're going to do now, put it in the training, or work with people as you're working with them to say, okay, this is how it's going to be now. And then provide those clear steps, one foot in front of the other. Here's what we're going to offer. Certainly clear communication, and one of the biggest things, failures around org change, is we assume communication happened because we sent it out once. Let me tell you, that doesn't. Sometimes multiple messages in different ways to meet different audiences' needs. Certainly training, we're going to train you. Oftentimes I'll have practice labs, coaching, and you have to model it yourself. Because if you go, yeah, this is kind of stupid, they're going to go, oh, well, Susan said it's stupid. She doesn't like it either, and she's got to work on the project. So, I'm not going to be in. You have to model the behavior. Rewards and recognition, especially, that'll help also sustain success measures. What does success look like? So everybody knows, what are we aiming for? We went through all this change. Did it matter? Have some success criteria. Because you go, hey, this is where we're at. This is how we improve look at our productivity. Look at you. You just got 2 hours back from your day, and I know the stack is still big, but you can do other things now. So what are those success measures? And then show progress. It's like, okay, we did this a little bit, this a little bit, because I know a lot of times it's not always the big bang waterfall thing. You know, if we do an agile, we have more incremental processes. You know, okay, now you can do this. Oh, now you're going to be able to do this, you know, so it's in little increments. And sometimes that's a little bit easier so that we can get people from the current state to future state in little bits. And it's not all like, oh, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to take this step. Now we're going to take this step. So the other thing we need to do, of course, and you know this is as being project professionals, this is nothing new to you, is you got to build strong relationships, because the more people trust you, the more they'll talk to you, the more they'll tell you your concerns, their apprehension. And that's where you find out if people are following up or not. It's like, so you want to make sure that you have really good relationships so people feel comfortable with you. You're going to recognize that, oh, you know, Bill seems kind of resistant. Hey, Bill, you know, what's going on? Talk to me. You know, is there something that I can do to help you? You know, and Bill, maybe I built a really good relationship with Bill, and Bill goes, you know, I'm still not buying this. I still don't understand this, you know, and people don't want to feel vulnerable. And so, but they are willing to do that when they trust someone. And so it's building those really strong relationships so that people are honest. And or if they spot, a lot of times in projects, they're unique. We don't know everything. You know, sometimes we just go, you know, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how it's going to come out. You know, and sometimes I'll either go try and find it out, or I'll just go, yeah, that is a good question. We're not sure, but we're going to keep an eye on it. I mean, just whatever it is, whatever their concerns are, and to be able to address that. The other tool here is, and you've probably all seen this, influence acceptance stakeholder matrix. So influence is the to the extent that another person can influence a person's opinions, their perceptions, their behaviors, their viewpoints. And so usually you're figuring out, okay, who are those people other people listen to, you know? Oh, Sally, I'm going to go to Sally. She always knows the scoop. You know, it's kind of like, hey, Mikey, Mikey likes Life cereal. I'm going to have some. You know, who's the Mikeys in your group? Who are the ones that people listen to going, wow, if they like it, it's probably not too bad because I know they're not going to steer me wrong. And then to what level do they accept? And so, and again, the thing is that change takes all of us. It takes a village, let's say. So not only all the people in the change team, the project team, but all the people that are impacted. And we can't do this ourselves. What we can do, though, is leverage those other people who can influence other people. And so if you can find people, your stakeholders in this project, that have this like, yeah, I'm on board. This is great. And they have high influence, you know, people listen to them. Those are your champions. Go after them. See if they can help you bring other people on board. Maybe they're the ones that are the early adopters. You know, there's always those. So you got your early ones, and then you got your, you know, kind of the middle of the road, and then you got kind of your laggards. But see if they can get other people on board. This doesn't need to be all on you. We do this as a team. And if you can get other stakeholders to help, you know, and sometimes that's all it takes for them to get buy-in. Oh, you're asking me to help? Oh, I can do a little training, or I can do a little coaching, or yeah, you know, if you get one of those people that are, you know, the person who was always the go-to person and now they don't know anything different than anybody else, train them first and train them to help train others. Guess what? Not only did you save face for them, but they're going to bring other people along. And so kind of just thinking about it strategically. It's like we can't do everything. We can't be everywhere. We can't, be with every single stakeholder that we have because there's lots of them, but who can we use? And that person is going to get excited for being, oh, I'm part of this. Okay, you just got their buy-in. And now they're going to help others come on board. The faithful, you still have to pay attention to. They don't have much influence, but you got to, make sure that they don't dive off the cliff. Low acceptance, there's going to be opposition. People are always going to be resistant. We talked about that already. Everybody is, at least for the first 5 minutes until they understand it. And it could be longer, which is usually when it's longer, they call me and going, okay, we've been arguing this for 2 years, we need help because it can't get off. And again, Tuckman, that forming stage. So there is going to be expected opposition, and listen to their needs. Sometimes people just need to be listened to. This is really a good thing about if you've ever had, if you have a customer service background or if you've been on customer service, they'll tell you, it's like, sometimes you just let people talk. You just let them rant and rave, and then they're fine. And then you can do whatever you need to do. We just sometimes just need to get it off our chest, and then you're going to have the high influencers and low acceptance, and you're going to hope that the champions are going to help you with those people, and maybe even say, hey, can you work with Bill? Can you work with Sally? I mean, I know they just don't feel like this is critical. Maybe can find out what's important to them. What did we miss? How do we get their buy-in? Because maybe they're closer to Bill and Sally than we are. So get other people involved. So this is where it says, get your stakeholders involved. The other thing is just to, again, I'm bringing back that listening. Listening is so critical. Listening, are they apprehensive? Are they nervous? Are they fearful? And not poo-pooing them, because our emotions are our emotions. We feel what we feel. They're not right or wrong. So how can we move forward on that? Watch them, see if there's any indication of resistance. Listen to their, if they used to be really talkative and now they're quiet, something's going on. Or vice versa. They used to be just really, kind of congenial, and everything was fine, and now they're just really grouchy. You notice the differences. So just kind of being able to watch, listen, ask about their concerns. You can get managers as well if you're doing a number of departments. See if you can get managers on board to look for those signs. Generally, I do a lot of that because I can't be everywhere all the time. And so just listening to them. Oh, it's a great idea for others. They need this. You guys go have fun. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't know exactly what you mean. I'll take a look. What's in it for me? Why is the change necessary? I mean, people have questions, and sometimes I can't answer their questions. Sometimes I don't know. Nobody knows because it's a new project, and we're still feeling our way around. But give them something to hang on to. Give them a rope. Even just say, hey, if you're having issues, just come and talk to me. And then we have to sustain the change. This comes in again that I was talking about, the New Year's resolution. Just because we trained everybody's on board, it seems like everything's okay. See you later. Sometimes we got to check in on them, because we can go back to bad habits. And I was actually reading, because I usually am pretty good when I want to change a habit. I'm pretty good for like the first month. And I always had heard it takes 30 days to change a habit. And I'm going, I'm pretty darn good at 30 days, but after that, then something happens, or something prevents me from doing something or whatever. So it's like, oh, and then try and get back into it. But then I read where it says, no, it certainly can take, 30 days, but oftentimes more, like 3 months, 4 months, depending on what it is and how the person feels about the change. We eventually can get there, but it's the same thing when you give people new processes and new technology, they're still adapting. They go on vacation for a week, they come back going, what was I supposed to do again? And what was that? So maybe we leave them some cheat sheets, or they start going, yeah, you know what? I used to do this in 5 minutes. I think if I still use some of the stuff that I used to use and I incorporate it into this new process, I think it'll still make it faster. And then all of a sudden, your wonderful process, your wonderful technology gets weird. Or they go back to, oh, I'm going to still use that old spreadsheet. Or I'm still going to use the old Word document. Oh, I still got to print everything. So you got to take away. Sometimes you have to take away some of those things that they get used to. Like maybe you have to take away the paper, or maybe you have to take away that Excel spreadsheet with all the macros they used to use all the time, because now they have to do it in their system. I actually had funerals for systems, because people just love the old system and they weren't sure about the new system. And so we, had everybody write a eulogy and, little gravestone markers. And it was, therapeutic, because it says, no, it's not coming back. So measure the impact, show progress. Make it, just like if you've done those United Way think campaigns and stuff, they show progress. And then when it gets progress, it's like, oh wow, well, I'm gonna get $5 more because then we can, I mean, and just kind of make it fun, but you gotta show progress, because if people don't think it's going anywhere, they're gonna lose encouragement, lose hope. So encourage those people to keep transitioning, finding a new routine, making sure you can reinforce that. So mistakes to avoid, danger. Not understanding the importance to people. If you're going to have project success, it takes people. Not appreciating that people have different time through, the speed of transition. Treating it as an event rather than a process. Not being candid. Just going, oh, this is going to be great. And it's not going to be great. And they can tell you in your eyes and your actions that you're really not saying it's great. So be candid. Not setting the stage for change, allowing complacency. Okay, well, if you don't want to do it this next week, we'll do it the following week. No, you gotta do it, because if you just keep putting it off, they're gonna put it off, and you're not gonna go anywhere. Believing communication happened. I've seen that so many times. Oh, well, we told everybody. Well, one, that doesn't mean they understood it, or they absorbed it, or they just maybe glanced at it in midst of all the other emails they get, or wherever, however you were doing it. And then not sustaining the change. So final thoughts, change happens one person at a time. We're all unique individuals. And it comes from the inside out, or inside out, not the outside in. You can't make people change, but you can encourage and influence them to change. So with that, we have some change classes coming up if you're interested, but it is my time is up, and sorry, I usually try and leave a little time for questions, but Mariella, are there a few questions that I can answer really quickly?
Hey, Susan. Yeah, I will go right ahead and double check to make sure I didn't miss anything. But we just had a lot of amazing input from our really engaged audience. So thank you all so much for giving some great feedback. And one piece of feedback that I particularly loved was that a great boss is great and a bad boss stays forever.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. No,
Isn't
you get
that
it.
sadly true? Yes.
Absolutely is so iconic and so true. But yeah, with that, I just want to remind everyone that there is a little bit more info on that link that I dropped in the chat. So if you want to learn a little bit more about org change and what you can do in our amazing 2-day course, please go ahead and take a peek into that. And yeah, no, we just got a lot of amazing, wonderful presentations, and thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone.
Alrighty. Bye, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will hopefully see you all very soon in the classroom. Bye for now.
Bye.